There is a question that quietly runs underneath every life. How much of what happens to you is your own doing, and how much is just luck? You work hard, you make good choices, and then a single accident, a market crash, a stroke of timing you never asked for, changes everything. 500 years ago, Machiavelli stared directly at this question. He gave the two forces names. He called luck Fortuna, and he called skill Virtù. And what he concluded is one of the most practical ideas ever written down, because it tells you exactly where to spend your effort and exactly where to stop wasting it. Niccolo Machiavelli watched powerful men rise out of nowhere and fall just as fast. He saw brilliant rulers destroyed by events no one could have predicted, and he saw mediocre ones lifted up by sheer good timing. Anyone watching that long enough is forced to ask, does anything we do actually matter, or is it all chance? Machiavelli refused to accept either extreme. He would not say everything is fate, and he would not pretend we are fully in control. Instead, he split the world in two. Fortuna was his word for everything outside your hands. The accidents, the timing, the circumstances of your birth, the events that arrive without warning. Virtù was his word for everything inside your hands. Your skill, your courage, your judgment, your readiness, your willingness to act. The whole art of living, he believed, is knowing which is which, and then pouring your energy into the half you can actually move. Here is how he measured it. Machiavelli wrote, "I am disposed to hold that fortune is the arbiter of one half of our actions, but that she still leaves the direction of the other half, or perhaps a little less, to ourselves." Sit with that number. Half. Maybe a little less. He is not promising you control your destiny. He is telling you that roughly half of your outcome is genuinely yours to shape. And most people get this exactly backwards. They obsess over the half they cannot control and neglect the half they can. To explain how Fortuna behaves, Machiavelli reached for one of the most memorable images in all of philosophy. He compared luck to a flooding river. He wrote that fortune is like one of those raging rivers, which when in flood overflows the plains, sweeping away trees and buildings, bearing away the soil from place to place. Everything flies before it, all yield to its violence, without being able in any way to withstand it. When you read that, it sounds hopeless. A flood tears through everything. What could you possibly do against a force like that? But Machiavelli does not stop there. He turns the image around. He continues, "And yet, though its nature be such, it does not follow therefore that men, when the weather becomes fair, shall not make provision, both with defenses and barriers, in such a manner that, rising again, the waters may pass away by canal, and their force be neither so unrestrained nor so dangerous." That is the entire philosophy in one picture. Yes, the flood will come. You cannot stop the river, but you can build the banks. You can dig the channels. You can decide, while the sun is still shining, where the water will go when it rises. The flood is Fortuna. The barriers are Virtù. And the people who get destroyed are not the ones the flood visited. Everyone gets visited eventually. They are the ones who built nothing while the weather was fair. This changes how you read your own setbacks. The job you lost, the deal that collapsed, the illness, the timing that ruined a perfect plan. Those are the river. Blaming yourself entirely for them is a mistake. Some of that was always going to fall outside your control. But here is the other edge of the blade. Did you build the banks? Did you have savings before the crash? Skills before the layoff? A second option before the door closed? Machiavelli's point is not that the flood is your fault. It is that your preparation was always your responsibility. Think about two people hit by the exact same misfortune. Both lose their jobs in the same week, in the same downturn, same flood. The first had spent years assuming the good times would last. No savings, no other skills, no network, no plan. For him, the flood is a catastrophe. The second had quietly built her banks, a cushion of savings, a side skill she kept sharp, relationships she maintained before she needed them. For her, the same flood is a hard season, not a ruin. Fortuna treated them identically. Virtù did not. So the first practical lesson is simple and a little uncomfortable. Stop spending your energy on the river. Stop replaying the unfairness. Stop waiting for conditions to be perfect. Stop treating luck as the thing that owes you. Spend your energy on the banks, the preparation, the skills, the reserves, the readiness that turn a disaster into an inconvenience. But Machiavelli adds a second insight, and this one is about attitude. He noticed that Fortuna does not reward the timid. He observed that fortune tends to favor those who move with force and confidence, rather than those who hesitate. In his words, fortune is the friend of the young because they are less cautious, more aggressive, and command her with greater audacity. His point is that when the moment opens, the people who seize it are usually the bold ones, not the careful ones still weighing their options. Now, this can be misread, so let's be precise. Machiavelli is not telling you to be reckless. He is telling you that opportunity has a clock. The flood that destroys one person carries another to higher ground, but only if that person is ready to move when the water rises. Preparation without action is just potential that never arrives. You build the banks during the calm. You act decisively when the moment comes. Both halves are virtù. This is where his idea becomes startlingly modern. There is a whole way of thinking today built on the same divide. Focus relentlessly on what is within your control and release what is not. Machiavelli arrived there centuries earlier, but with a sharper edge. He does not just ask you to calmly accept what you can't control. He asks you to actively fortify against it. Acceptance is only half the answer. The other half is engineering, building your life so that when chance turns hostile, it cannot take everything. So let's turn this into something you can use this week. Take any area of your life that worries you, your finances, your career, your health, a relationship. Now split it into two columns. In the first column, write the things that are pure fortuna, the market, other people's decisions, the timing of events, the accidents you cannot foresee. Look at that column honestly and then let it go. Worrying about it changes nothing. That is the river, and the river does what it does. In the second column, write the virtù, the savings you could build, the skill you could sharpen, the conversation you could have, the option you could create, the action you've been postponing. That column is your real life. That is where every ounce of your effort belongs. Machiavelli's entire teaching comes down to moving your attention out of the first column and into the second. And here is the quiet freedom in it. Once you accept that half of everything is out of your hands, you stop carrying a weight that was never yours to carry. You stop blaming yourself for the floods, but you also stop hiding behind them. You can no longer say, "It's all just luck," as an excuse to build nothing, because Machiavelli has shown you the banks were always yours to raise. Think of the most resilient person you know, the one who seems to absorb shocks that would flatten anyone else. They are not luckier than you. Statistically, the river visits them too. What they have is banks, reserves, skills, options. A calm that comes not from controlling the world, but from being prepared for it. That is virtù made visible. And it is something you can build, starting now, while your own weather is fair. So the question Machiavelli hands you across 500 years is this. The flood is coming. It always is. What are you building before it arrives? Are you spending your days resenting the river or raising the banks? Because the people who last are never the ones the flood spared. They are the ones who got ready. Machiavelli pushed this idea about boldness even further, with one of the most provocative lines in the book. He wrote that fortune is a woman, and it is necessary, if you wish to master her, to conquer her by force. It is a line written in the rough language of his century, and we can leave the metaphor where it belongs. But the point underneath it is serious. He believed that Fortuna yields to those who approach her with energy and decisiveness, and rolls over those who approach her with caution and hesitation. Luck, in his view, is not neutral. It leans toward action. The person who waits for certainty before moving usually finds that the moment has already passed, swept downstream with everything else. There is real psychology in this. Opportunities are rarely labeled as opportunities when they arrive. They show up disguised as risk, as inconvenience, as a door that's only open for a little while. The cautious person sees the risk and freezes. The prepared Decisive person sees the same risk, recognizes the opening underneath it, and moves before it closes. Both faced identical luck. Only one converted it. That conversion, turning a passing chance into a permanent gain, is virtue in its purest form. So let's add a second practice to the two-column exercise. Once a week, look back at the days behind you and ask a single question. Where did a moment open that I let pass because I wanted more certainty? Not to punish yourself, to train yourself. Most people never notice the opportunities they decline, because declining feels safe and invisible. Bringing those moments into the light retrains your instinct. Over time, you start to recognize the open door while it's still open, instead of mourning it after it shuts. Because Fortuna will keep sending floods and openings for the rest of your life, in roughly equal measure. The floods test whether you built your banks. The openings test whether you'll move when it counts. Machiavelli's whole philosophy of luck comes down to being ready for both, fortified against the disaster, and bold enough to seize the chance. If this way of dividing your life into what you control and what you don't resonated with you, you'll want to see the next idea in this series. Machiavelli on why relying on borrowed strength quietly destroys you, and how to build power that's actually your own. And for more wisdom that helps you build a stronger, steadier life, subscribe to Above Average. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.